Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get podcasts and follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MLU Pod. And you can follow me as well. It's Peter_A, Twitter, Instagram. We got another great Long Island artist on the show today, Sam Raia from the group Necter. And she actually books all the shows for the group. So we'll talk about all of her experiences doing that. Getting booked for the Great South Bay Festival on Long Island. Almost playing for Bayside. And plenty more. With Sam Raia from Necter on My Little Underground. Miss Sam Raia of Necter, welcome.
Hello! Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. What's going on with you? How you feeling mentally?
I am mentally stimulated. I'm feeling good, despite all the wacky, crazy things that are going on. Staying positive, you know?
How's your dog doing?
My dog is doing great. She's having the time of her life. We've been hanging out on a little quarantine vacation together. She's currently taking a nap in the van with me. And yeah, she's giving me the frumpy face right now because I'm talking, but she's going to have to deal with it.
That's great. I was worried about her over the past couple of years. I'm glad she's doing okay.
Oh, yeah, man. She's doing so good. She was having a little issue for about a year and a half, and the local scene came together. We had a little fundraiser show for her, and she's like absolutely a brand new dog. We call her Miss New Booty now.
That's wonderful. Musically, Necter put out their new album, Spilt Milk, and
yeah,
it's great. I love it. It's a good direction for you guys, and I understand that Bandcamp did a nice little fee waiver earlier this month, and they're doing the same thing for June and July. And artists and labels have received over $7 million from this initiative. So has this been a benefit to Necter?
We definitely have been a little bit off recently just because of everything going on, but like with the whole Bandcamp like movement and everything going on with that, where they've just been like promoting stuff, like we've definitely benefited from people coming together and understanding like, just how hard it is right now to be in a band and it doesn't feel like you're in a band. So we've definitely gotten, a lot of help from everybody and a lot of support over the last, couple months with everything. So yeah, no complaints really, just about the fact that we can't play shows,
So do you have any new selections for when they do this again for June and July? Any demos or anything any kind of loose songs that you would put on Bandcamp, for people?
We got some things. We really I think we just made one of our, best albums yet, and we're really, really happy about it.
Agreed.
So, we're having so much fun with that still, and we really just want to kind of coast on this for a little bit. But we really found ourselves a really nice spot at Westfall Recording Studio on Long Island, and I can definitely see us recording, maybe a summer single, maybe something like that. But as of right now, we're kind of just like, we're just working on ourselves. We're working on our, just technicality. Like, we want to be better musicians. We want to be better people. We want to be able to reach different platforms. So, maybe in the next couple months, when we can finally hang out again and start doing something, then we can probably make another, little thing happen.
So you recorded Spilt Milk with Ray Marte of Moontooth. What was his role, and what was it like working with him?
My goodness gracious. So to start, we're like huge Moontooth fans, and they're our friends too. So it's just like, it was an absolute blessing to fall into that. And Ray is phenomenal. Ray recorded, he mainly was in there for drums, and then he did a lot of the mixing and mastering. Anthony Lapardo pretty much did most of the recording. And we just had such a good vibe going. Like, you know, you never know what you're getting into when you're going into a recording experience. Like, we try to be like, all right, we're going to go into this. It was our first studio recording, you know? So for us, we were like completely fish out of water, but they made it so comfortable. They made it so progressive. They made just like this whole thing just go so smooth. Like, we've never had a schedule to where it felt like, you know, instead of waking up, drinking coffee and going to work, it was like, I remember Ryan, our drummer, saying, oh, this is great. You know, I can wake up, have my coffee, and then I drive to the studio and I play drums all day. Like, it was just a complete different experience than we're used to. Like, we've pretty much been DIY from the beginning, you know? So yeah, dude, it was absolutely phenomenal. Ray is one of my favorite drummers, and I would definitely vouch for Ryan in that as well. Like, we look up to Moontooth so much as a local band and just what they've accomplished. So getting to record our favorite album with one of our favorite bands was just like completely a mind-blowing experience the entire time. Like, I would turn around and just like see Ray behind the computer and be like, am I doing this right now? Like,
But you guys are, yeah, you're DIY, but that doesn't mean you can't be, you know, professional and have, you know, some sort of like discipline going into making this album. I know you're friends with most people that you work with as a group. Is there any, do you guys know that, okay, we're on the same page, even though we're all friends, but like we're here to like work and get things done? Do you ever get distracted just because you're working with your friends?
I mean, yeah, it's just so funny because like we have this whole family, you know, in our band, and we travel together, we live together, like we are around each other so much that like, you know, I guess, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man, we definitely had to be like, okay, look, we're doing vocals, we have to be professional, you know, we have to go in there like drinking tea, doing the thing, like trying our best to like be, you know, professional. But then there's definitely times where like Anthony Lapardo is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life, and like Brianna and I both were just like absolutely just like in hysterics, like just laughing most of the time. Like, there's so much that went into that album that like I think about that album and I just think about what a great time we had, you know? And I think that's really special. I think it's really special when bands are able to have like a really fulfilling experience out of it. It should never be something that like some people are like, oh, you know, it's like recording, it's got to be this, it's going to be hard, it's got to be like blood, sweat, and tears. Like, I'll tell you straight up, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into the album, but we also put like a ton of good vibes and a ton of laughter and a ton of love. Like, and we can feel that when we listen back to the album.
I mean, if anybody has had the pleasure of seeing Necter live, I mean, yes, there's professionalism and there's, okay, we're playing a show, but you could tell you're friends with the people you work with and you're comfortable around each other. And we feel that in the crowd. We feel like you guys have this chemistry locked down. And yes, we're doing this for little to no money, but we're putting everything into it because we love what we do.
Yeah. And that's exactly, you know, I'm so flattered to know that that's being captured, because that's exactly what we want. You know, we want people to feel like, you know, we're all friends here. We're all, you know, moving together. And I think more than anything, like, we really touch on a lot of, you know, mental health topics and a lot of past traumas and a lot of things that people are all working through and all of our friends are working through. And it feels really good to like know that we're still doing the same thing. We're still getting the same feeling. We're still, you know, making those connections emotionally. And man, I just can't wait to play a show again. I literally had a dream last night about playing a show, and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to use my first cuss word in this interview, but I was like, fuck quarantine. I can't handle it.
And even your peach parties were just a bunch of, you know, friends hanging out, but there was still like an order to it. Okay, this person's going on. We got Taylor Cook, and then Nectar's gonna play, and then we're gonna have a little small open mic, and everyone's gonna hug each other. That's exactly what it was. Yeah,
that's all it was. That's all we wanted. Like, we were, man, peach parties were so much fun. I started that up when I was just like getting into the music scene. Really, I moved out to Long Island from Brooklyn, and I was just like, all right, these are my friends now, like what am I gonna do? And started putting together Peach Party. And if it weren't for Peach Party, I don't think I would have made so many connections with so many local bands that have, we've played on so many bills with the same bands, and it's just like we've all grown together, and the music scene on Long Island is just growing and growing and growing, and it's just like I just love all these people, and I just can't wait to see them perform again. It's such an amazing feeling.
Yeah, even your March tour, the beginning of it, you started right here on Long Island. And what was that release show like? Because this album meant a lot to you guys, and it's just to start this tour, and you're playing places you've probably never been before. To start it right here where it all began necessarily. What was the atmosphere like there? And was it mostly people you knew or people that you've never seen before?
It was definitely a really amazing mixture of both. Because there was a lot. For one thing, it was our first time playing at the VFW Hall in Massapequa, which I love the old school kind of DIY feel of like VFW halls and all that stuff. And when Jonathan from Long Island Emo reached out to us about putting on shows at the VFW Hall, we were like, it could be really hit or miss. So we were like, let's go check out a show there. And it was me and Brianna and my boyfriend, Kevin Rinn, who plays in Wait and Shackle. The three of us went out to this show together, and I think it was Strawberry Blonde played, and it was our first time seeing Strawberry Blonde, who I don't know if you've checked them out yet, but they are amazing. And we went there to feel out it, see what the sound was like, see everything. And we were like, this is where we want to do our comeback show. It wasn't just our release show or our tour kickoff. It was like, we hadn't played a show in almost 7 months at that point. Because we took so much time off for recording. So that night, the whole feeling, it was just like, it's amazing when not to say that we doubt ourselves. I do think it's important for musicians to be like, oh, nobody's going to listen to this. And then you get that satisfaction of like, oh my God, all these people are listening to this, So, that night I remember at one point just being like, who here has been to a Necter show before, and seeing a show of hands, and then being like, who here is seeing Necter for the first time here? And like this same amount of hands going up and just being like, oh my God, like, I don't know half the people in this room. Most of it's just, word of mouth, or somebody sends, a Spotify link to somebody, whatever the case may be. But it's just amazing to, have that whole feeling, be like, wow, we're back, guys. Like, we're doing the thing again. Hit the road for tour. And then, obviously things got a little canceled or majorly canceled. But we made the most of it. And like you said too, we went to a ton of places that we've never been before. And I mean, this was even though things went wrong with, obviously the whole pandemic and everything, it's like, this was my favorite tour that I've ever booked. I do the booking for Necter. So like, I'm so proud of myself, and I really had to take that from it as well. Just everything is just totally where we want it to be as a band right now, and that's really important to acknowledge when you're in a small local scene,
Yeah, I mean that's when you're playing a hometown show, because when you think of Long Island, it's really not like any other place, because it's so big. Because I think I've only seen you guys play way out in Suffolk.
Yeah.
And to come to Nassau, it's almost like you're starting over. You're meeting new people all over again in the same area, generally speaking. Yeah.
No, I definitely feel that. And a lot of our favorite bands that we like to go see in the local scene, a lot of them are Nassau kids. And like, we're from, everybody's like, oh, that's, the Goonies basically, or the Boonies, whatever it is. I'm probably messing that up. But yeah, we're like out east kids for the most part. We're from Rocky Point and Shoreham. So it's like we're North Shore East kids, and like we didn't really know a lot more past that point. And we have bands from you know, Oceanside and Queens and like all these other places that were just like, this has been, you know, on the same island as us this entire time. And like, how? Like, you see these bands that are just so talented, and it's just, I can't, you know, describe enough just like how proud we are of the local scene and just like how big it is to us, you know?
Yeah, it is pretty big, and it's very diverse. You know,
Yeah.
look at guys like MJT and you guys, Astronautal, artists on totally different planes and planets,
Yeah.
but from the same fish. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this tour, you know, you said it was very, you know, huge for you because, you know, was it because you're booking places you've never been before? And are the places that you're playing or trying to reach out to bigger than the spaces that you've been playing originally?
Yeah, it was our first time. We had basically the way that things work with like when I book the tours and stuff is like there's an amazing Facebook platform called DIY Tour Postings. And I usually sit in front of a computer for like 2 or 3 weeks, like just drying my eyeballs out and finding, you know, venues and people that, you know, fit on a bill with us that are in other states. And we have an amazing friend named Olivia who plays in a band called Young Animals. They're from St. Louis. And she has a lot of really awesome connections, and she helped me out a lot with a lot of the dates on tour. And that too, it was our first time playing St. Louis. The most wild coincidence that happened on tour, I mean, there's plenty of them, but the night that we played in St. Louis, we played at this really awesome venue called the Sinkhole. And our sound guy was the bass player of my favorite band, which is Foxing. And they're from St. Louis. And I've seen Foxing play like, you know, countless times. And they are just phenomenal musicians. And now here I am checking a microphone in front of like, you know, one of my favorite musicians. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, I kept turning around and like looking at, you know, Ryan and Kieran and Bree and just being like, is this real? Like, what the hell? And so that was, you know, something I didn't even know was going to happen, but it was very like, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. You're making the right moves. And it just felt really good to be doing that. And then really besides that, with the whole tour, this was the first tour that I booked consecutively, like date wise. So we were supposed to be out for pretty much an entire month. And we were, you know, I think we had a 5 days off planned out of the entire month. And it wasn't like 5 days in a row. It was like 1 day for driving and, you know, whatever else. But, you know, when things got canceled, we were in Texas, and I pretty much just started hitting up the venues and being like, you know, we didn't really know what was going on at that time. I don't think anybody really did. And I pretty much was just like, hey, if you guys are still comfortable, you know, we're from New York. We're in the middle of Texas. We're going to have to pass through to come back. So it pretty much was like, are you comfortable having a band still play? If not, can we still come through? Like, you know, whatever the deal may be. But I'm just proud of the way that we handled things. I'm proud of the way that we went into this tour. We didn't spend a single dollar at like a restaurant for, I think, the first like 2 weeks. We literally just like would pull up in a rest stop, and like we have a little Coleman stove. We'll just like make some eggs. We had eggs and potatoes like every single day. Shout out to Ryan for being the best egg cooker. But yeah, you know, we figured out what everybody needs, and we took all of that into consideration, and we made the best tour that we could have.
How do you determine if a band would fit your bill or whatever you know, show you're trying to book?
It really comes down to, I'll listen to them. I try to get a feel for the same energy that Necter brings to a performance, because I feel like when you play a show with a band, it's like, not like you guys try to one up each other, but you kind of try to equal out the night, because you got to think of the crowd the whole time. And, you know, if I listen to, for instance, I'm bringing up Young Animals again, just because I love them so much. They are very high energy. They're really talented people. And we would, being on a bill with them was like getting to almost watch Necter, getting to watch a better version of Necter play, I'll say. Like, those kids are so talented, but they're so much fun to watch, and they're so much fun to listen to. And that's what I look for when I'm booking a show with a band. I look for, that same energy. Even just, the biggest thing that we get compliment wise in Necter is just like the emotional feel. So sometimes I'll sit down and I'll listen to a band's album and I'm like, did I cry? Did I get choked up? Did that remind me of, this? And try to put those things into perspective and be like, okay, that's a band that I want to play with. And a lot of the time, like I mentioned before, my boyfriend, Kevin, he also books for his band Weight and Shackle, and he's been really helpful with booking, DIY shows for me or, with me. And I always learned from him because, we hang out all the time, and he listens to bands from other states all the time. Like, some people listen to Beyonce, some people listen to like a random playlist and all this stuff. And like, this kid just listens to DIY bands like all day long. And like, that really showed me, it really taught me like the dedication to the music and the bands that you're playing with. You have to be as inspired by them, and you have to want to see them play, and that makes everything more exciting. And something that I started doing on this last tour as well was when we were on our way to a show, the last 2 hours of the drive, I'd be like, all right guys, I'm gonna put on this band's Spotify, we're gonna play with them tonight, and listen to them, so that everybody in the van, because I'm usually the one booking things, I don't really send like an itinerary out to the rest of the band until like the week before, so they don't really even know who we're playing with most of the time. And yeah, I'll send them, we'll start listening to the bands, and most of the time they're just like, wow, like I can't wait to see this band, I can't wait to listen to this band. And like, sometimes it's some really weird band that will, you would never think that we would be on a bill with, and then you see them play live and you're like, holy shit, like that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's really what we go for, is just like try to find bands that have an energy, have an emotion, just make you feel something, and you want to be a part of it, and that their fans will understand your music from there, I guess is really it.
So how are you finding these bands? Do people reach out to you? Does your boyfriend recommend you? Like what's happening here?
It's mainly through DIY Tour Postings, which is a Facebook page. It's private. It's kind of easy to get into. There's just no like shit posting, basically. Like, you kind of just have to, it's a community, to say like, it's a lot of bands just reaching out being like, hey, my band so-and-so is going on tour this year and we're looking to play in these places. Is there anybody in this group from these places that can help me put on a show here? Or is there any recommendations of bands that have been through these places before that had a good experience there? So most of the time, as I said before, like I'll sit in front of a computer screen and dry my eyeballs out and just like read through all these pages. I'll go through old flyers from past shows at cool venues and like hit up those local bands and be like, hey, I saw you played at this place. How was it? Do you want to play there again on this date when my band's coming through there? Is like kind of the wording. It usually sounds a little bit nicer through email, I hope. But yeah, for the most part, it's really just, I go on this community. I pretty much just like look up the bands. I look up the towns usually, and then I try to find people in the town, try to find the bands in the town. I definitely wasn't using it properly like a couple years ago when I first started booking for Necter. I was kind of just like, cool, here's a band that plays in this place, let me just do that. And that's how Necter ended up on, a death metal bill. And that was a, bizarre experience, but we made some really good friends in Gainesville, Florida. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
So it seems to me like you're not one of, these, artists or bands or bookers in bands that are trying to find artists that almost sound similar to them. You're just going off of feeling and emotive response. So you would play a show with anyone from any kind of genre, style, whatever, as long as they
Yeah.
match what you're bringing on stage.
Yeah, pretty much. Like if somebody makes me feel something, the other thing too is like all of Nectar has such a diverse like taste in music. Like it's just ridiculous. Like even just the playlist that we listen to while we're driving and stuff is just like we go from like Christina Aguilera to like, you know, the heaviest metal to like, you know, back to pop, back to like whatever else, then just like funny stuff. And like we just listen to everything all the time. And a lot of the time it's like, oh, you know, I would love to, you know, play with this band that sounds like this. And it really is just like, we want to play with bands that we want to listen to. We don't want to play with bands that, you know, aren't trying as hard, aren't doing the same thing that we are. You know, we just want to listen to people and make friends with people. At the end of the day, like all touring is like bringing something to somebody and being like, do you like this? And they can be like, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette in the kitchen. You know, that's what like DIY shows are like. Or it's like you have a room full of really respectful people that just admire your you know, effort and admire your art and everything else. And it's like you can kind of feel out from talking to these bands what things are gonna be like. And amongst everything else is setting up trade shows where it's like you have this trust that, cool, you're gonna set me up in, you know, Texas. You're gonna set up Nectar in Texas. Cool. So to that, you know, local Texas band, whenever they want to come back to New York, if they want to come to New York and play a show, Nectar will house them, feed them, put on an awesome show. We usually play with the bands so that we can draw, you know, a good crowd for them. But yeah, it's pretty much just like you have to understand the community to really be a part of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head with community. I
Yeah.
think when artists form a community with people they, you know, they click with and have a chemistry with, when you have that bond, like you said, you're bringing them into your house or getting them booked. I think that just helps music as a whole. You know, it just
Yeah.
shows you that this is much better than, you know, being number one on the Billboard charts or having Grammys. We have a community that we're fostering, and we're showing people that, you know, here's music that's not over here, but it's everywhere. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And I think the cool part about that too is like I'll set up a show just as an amazing example. We made really good friends with this band called Gaffer Project, who have pretty much become like our second family at this point. And we actually featured Jordan Doyle, who's their lead singer and their bass player. He sings or screams, I don't know what they want to call it, but I always get into that. I'm like, I don't know what you guys call it, but it sounds pretty.
Vocals, just vocals.
He does vocals. Jordan does vocals on Dark Battery, which was our first instrumental song, and then we were like, we have to put Jordan on this, we have to do that. And Gaffer Project has come to Long Island a handful of times now. And the first couple times they came to Long Island, you know, I would be putting bands on the bill that I think would sound really cool with them, whatever. And then after, you know, the first year that they had visited Long Island like a couple times, we would put up a flyer on Long Island that said that Gaffer Project was playing, and people would freak out. Like our friends would be like, oh my God, you're bringing back that band? And like, they're from Virginia. They're from the middle of Virginia. And it's just like, it's feels so good to be on that end of things where I'm like, you know, people appreciate the shows that we're putting on. They appreciate the bands that we're bringing back with us. Like, our homecoming show from tour was supposed to feature two bands that Wait and Shackle was coming off of their tour, and they were going to bring back a band with them, and Nectar was coming back as well, and we were bringing back a band as well. And it was just like the coolest thing for Kevin and I, because we were just like, this is awesome that like we just did this whole DIY tour. Now we're bringing back these two bands together, and everybody's going to be at this homecoming show, and everybody's going to be so excited that we're home and all this stuff. And they're going to see these two phenomenal bands that we bring back with us. And like, that's a huge thing for us, is just, we want people to feel like, it's just this whole we help you, you help us kind of environment. And I just am constantly just like, I get like gushy over it. I'm just like, I love all of this so much. I love working in this band. I love being in this band, and it's just good vibes all around.
I think that's like a great way of discovering music, because if you have a show in Patchogue and you think, okay, I'm going to see a bunch of Long Island bands, but you really aren't. You're seeing, yeah, 2 Long Island bands, and then you're seeing 2 bands that they brought with them that they discovered while playing shows wherever. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to get people to know what music is out there, because you're going on these tours, you're meeting all these people, and you probably wouldn't have discovered their music any other way, because they're not going to be on a Spotify playlist algorithm. You went
Yeah.
out and you met people.
Yeah. And the cool thing too is like, how often do you meet somebody on Long Island that like literally has never left New York or literally never left Long Island, and now they're looking at this band in front of them that's from California or like Alabama, like random places that like these people have never been. And it's like, you have a opportunity to be like, so what's California like? So what's Alabama like? Like talk to these people and make a friend from another state. And like, it gives you a reason to go there. It gives you a reason like, hey, your next family vacation, see if that band has a show while you're there, it really just opens up a whole new doorway for people to interact in music. And like, music is a language, and I think it's really beautiful that people get to have that experience. And I think it's really important that bands tour. I think touring is so important, because it shows you, that other side of things. And like, we're very sustainable in our tour van, and I'm very sustainable in my house van. But we kind of come to this point where it's like, you go into a venue, and my favorite thing to do when we get to a new place that we've never been is like kind of ground everybody. I'll bring, Nectar together, and I'll be like, all right, guys, so we've never been here before. We have no place to sleep, and we have no friends here. Like, get in there, make some friends, have a good time, find us a place to sleep. And usually within an hour or two, like somebody will come up to me and be like, hey, I met this kid. He said we can stay at his house tonight. He's in this band. And it's like, boom, there we go. Got a bed to sleep in,
What? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude. Imagine meeting somebody, and then the same day that you meet them, you go and you stay at their house, or you stay on their, front porch, or you stay like, that's what it's like. Like, you literally just go into a room, you meet a complete stranger, and you trust them enough not to murder you in your sleep, basically.
That's a level of outgoing that I know nothing about.
It's awesome. It's so much fun. It's very thrilling.
So what are some things that has stuck out to you when playing on the first half of your tour? Especially from the different markets. Like, you played in Chicago, big city, to Wichita, Kansas. Like, what sticks out to you from these crowds?
The people. We were really fortunate to be back in Chicago. We went back to the same venue that we played in. Chicago was the furthest west that we had ever been at the beginning of this tour. And what really happened was like, I guess it was just, I hit up this band, or I hit up the promoter, because our show had fallen through in Akron, Ohio, which, curse you, Akron, Ohio. I promise you Nectar will play there someday, but like, we have never played there. So our show fell through in Akron. I hit up this promoter on a whim that we had talked to in Chicago, and I was like, is there any way that we can play a show? Like, we had a show fall through. Can we just drive to Chicago? And he was like, I don't know if you're going to fit on the bill, but I'll let you play. And we're like, all right. So we had gone over there, and we saw a couple people that we had met before. Ryan had some friends that live in Chicago, so they came through. And I think we ended up leaving and driving to Wichita after the show, which usually we try to stay in Chicago because it's just so much fun and there's so much to look at. But yeah, it really is just like, the people stand out to you. I think Wichita was one of our favorite shows. I don't know if I'm overstepping for talking for everybody, but we just like we walked into this empty bar and it was just like the weirdest like vibe. And then by the time it was showtime and we started setting up the show, it was like a hell ton of, college kids from across the street come in the door. They're all buying drinks, they're all hanging out, and by the end of the night it was like every single person in that room bought a t-shirt, everybody had a CD, like everybody just was hanging out talking to us like the entire night. And we're like, wow, like who thought that Wichita, Kansas, out of all places on this tour bill, like would have been the spot that we were like most proud of being in. And it really just comes down to the connections that you make and the people that are there. Like some of my favorite tour stories from other bands are like them playing in like some weird, population 200 town, and it's like the best show ever, So it's really hit or miss, but like most of the time it's just you go in there, you do your thing, and if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, you just drive to the next city. Like you don't just see them again, you just don't book the show again.
So let's bring it back to Long Island. You were booked to play the Great South Bay Festival. That's huge. So how did that come together?
Honestly, this is actually I love telling this story. So do you have an iPhone?
Not yet. I'm shopping for one as we speak.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. So people that have an iPhone know that when they get a call from an unknown caller, sometimes it pops up on the phone and it says maybe, and then it has a name next to it. And you're like, what the hell?
Really?
Yeah. Super creepy. Super, super creepy. So I'm sitting on my couch one day and I'm doing some booking on my computer, and I look in the Necter Gmail, which I check frequently, and I see an email from Jim Faith, who runs Great South Bay. And I've known the name Jim Faith for a while because I've been like waiting for Great South Bay to happen for Necter, like literally waiting, praying, hoping for, that to happen for us. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is not fucking real. Like, are you kidding me? And it's like, hey, Necter, want to play Great South Bay? Call me at this number. And not even 15 minutes later, I get a phone call and I look at my phone and it says, maybe Jim Faith. And I'm like, how did he get my phone number? What is going on right now? I'm like literally like screaming in my house by myself. And I run outside and I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, we're going to talk to Jim Faith from Great South Bay on the phone. Like, you're cool. We're cool. And I answered and I was like, hey, Jim Faith, how you doing? And just like totally made it weird right off the bat. And he started hysterically laughing and he was like, hey, like, so does Necter want to play Great South Bay this year? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, like, you don't have to run it by the band or anything. And I'm like, no, we're good for it. He's like, do you want to know the date? And I'm just like, sure. Like, literally just like whatever he said to me on that phone, I was just like, yep, sounds good. We'll do it. Sounds great. Like, just did not care. I was like, I don't care if somebody's going to a wedding that day. We're playing Great South Bay Festival. Like, I pretty much was just like, nothing else matters that day. We're playing Great South Bay. And I got off the phone with him. I literally started crying. Oh my God, I'm such a baby. I started crying and I called my dad because my dad has taken me to Great South Bay Festival for a couple years now, or more than that. And I called him and I'm like crying on the phone because every single year, I don't remember what the Long Island station is, but it's EHM. So my dad listens to that radio station and he's like, oh, they're doing bands can get submitted to play at Great South Bay. Like, you guys should really enter. And I'm like, no, like, what are the chances of that happening? Like, whatever. So, like, we've literally never attempted to play Great South Bay before. So now, I'm on the phone with my dad and I'm like, we did it. We're playing Great South Bay. And I'm like crying and he's crying and we're just like, like, this is amazing. And I texted the Necter group chat and I was just like, hey guys, so I kind of jumped the gun and we're playing Great South Bay on this day. And everybody was just like, fuck yeah, like awesome. Like, only time it's acceptable to accept a show date is like Great South Bay or like, I don't fucking know, maybe like Bonnaroo. But yeah, we literally, like, I just jumped the gun and was like, this is a good move, making this decision, we're doing this. And yeah, I mean, I hope it's still happening. Fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed.
I mean, this year had a huge lineup, or well, we don't know what's going to happen, but Mighty Mighty Boss Tone, Circa Survive,
Circa
St. Paul and the Broken
Survive,
Bones.
dude. Getting to say that we would play on the same festival as Circa Survive, like, for Bree specifically, like, they are I can't even describe to you how big of a fan they are. And, like, oh man, this just getting to send that text, and I knew that Bree was at work, and I knew the second that they read that message, they were gonna, like, freak out. And I just remember getting that message back of like, oh my god, we can tell people that we played, you know, a show with Circa Survive, basically. And I'm just like, there we go, everybody, like, I did it. And yeah, I mean, I really, really hope that things, you know, cool out and we can figure things out by then. But hey, if not, I still got offered, you know, we still got offered a show to play with, you know, Circa Survive, and on an amazing historical festival on Long Island. And I'm sure we'll be invited back. I hope so. I love you, Jim Faith.
So what are some of your fondest memories of going to Great South Bay?
This is actually funny, but it's the first thing that pops into my head. It was the first time that I had ever seen glass blowing, and I had no idea what they were making. And I remember holding my dad's hand. I was like really little, and I was like, whoa, like, what is that? Like, what are they doing? And my dad was kind of like, you know, we'll just keep walking. Like, let's go over here. And I was like, no, like, that looks really cool. And, like, I just remember seeing a ton of vendors and a ton of, like, you know, recognizing that I think Great South Bay as a child for me was, like, really learning that where I lived on Long Island was filled with a bunch of really creative people, because all of the vendors there are local vendors. You know, there's people from, you know, Nassau, Suffolk, like, you know, freaking Montauk, like, everywhere that are vending on that festival. And it gives you an opportunity to, you know, see the other side of things that you wouldn't really see, or like be like, oh, you know, some people make jewelry, some people make, you know, weed bowls, like stuff like that. And yeah, I remember my first, like, fondest memory. The first band that I remember seeing was Craving Strange. And I remember the guitarist had like a whole scale, like a guitar scale written out on his forearm. And I remember, like, thinking that was really cool, because I was like, oh, he can just, like, forget how to play music and look at his arm and it's right there. Like, but I just think, like, seeing the fact that there was such a major festival going on, you know, a half hour away from where I lived was really cool. And I still think that's really cool. Yeah, I really just think it was the whole community and just, like, the whole atmosphere in general, like, really woke me up a little bit as a, you know, impressionable child. And my dad is a big music fan, so he was always one of those people that would, like, give you a CD and be like, this person's gonna be huge, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then, like, you know, 3 weeks later it's like they're on MTV, or they're, like, you know, winning an award or something like that. And I always, like, trusted my dad with those things, and that festival for me and my family together is just, like, really, really important. And yeah, it's just really special to me, and I am just so honored that we have been asked to be a part of that.
What are some bands that your dad recommended that eventually became huge?
Ooh, Gavin DeGraw.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad gave me, I don't know if you've ever actually, like, given a listen to, like, he has an album, I think it's called Follow Through, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure. It's him with, like,
I saw him live at the New York State Fair. My brother's
Dude,
a big fan, and he's a great performer.
Yeah, he is. I saw him play, this is so cheesy. I saw him open for Avril Lavigne in Saratoga Springs when I was, like, 13 years old. And I was like, what a weird lineup. Like, who would think Gavin DeGraw and Avril Lavigne? But they were, like, really big at that time. And at that time, it wasn't like, oh, these bands, you know, fit on a bill together. It was like, here's a pop star, here's another guy that's doing big stuff, here's this guy like on a bill. And yeah, I was a huge Gavin DeGraw fan, and my dad had given me that CD, and like we used to listen to it in his van when we'd be on road trips and stuff, and like I was always really into it. And I remember like just listening to like my dad sing and being like, how goofy is that? And then I started singing. And also, I mean, Avril Lavigne too was a band that, or you know, a vocalist that my dad had showed me, and I was like, what the hell? Like, I remember buying every single one of her CDs. I had her like live DVDs. I would put them on like religiously in my room and just like watch her perform. Like, oh my God, I'm uncovering so much personal stuff right now. It's so embarrassing.
So tell me about the Open for Bayside contest.
Ooh, that was really cool. I mean, Bayside, that's like it's a big meaning to Brianna and I as friends. Bri and I have like, you know, 10 plus years of friendship at this point, and I think one of our first like common bands that we shared between each other was Bayside. So, actually, really funny thing about Bayside, we had seen Anthony Ranieri, their vocalist and, you know, guitarist. He did an acoustic set at Amityville Music Hall one year, and we were over there, and his opener, I don't remember his name, but his opener was not prepared enough for the show, is the nicest way that I can put it. He would like start playing a song and then be like, fuck that, I'm gonna play a different song, I don't like that one. And I'm like, dude, you're opening for Anthony Ranieri of Bayside right now, like what are you doing? And this was right when Necter was starting out, so Bri and I had messaged Anthony Ranieri on Facebook being like, you know, what are the chances he's going to answer? And we messaged him and we were like, hey, next time you're going to do an acoustic show and like you don't want that guy to open for you, like let us know. And he said, cool, send me some demos. And we were like, oh my God, like he responded. And it was then that we recorded the demos for At the Core, which was our first album. The only reason that Brianna and I ever recorded any demos was to send to Anthony Ranieri from Bayside.
So you're saying Bayside is responsible for Necter?
Yeah. Bayside is literally the reason that Necter exists. Like, the reason that we recorded anything, the reason that we, like, really started, like, got the fire under our ass to, like, actually do anything. And so, yeah, when we saw the contest go up, we were like, this is awesome because they're from New York. They know what the local scene here is like, you know? So we jumped it, you know, as soon as we could, and we started sending the link around. And we were in, like, the top, like, 4 for, like, the first, like, week or two. And the thing that was so hard about that is, like, as I've said before, like, you know, the local scene is so important to us. So, like, all these other bands we're looking at on this poll and they're getting voted, and like there was definitely a day or two that like I would put a vote in for like another band and stuff like that, because I was just like, I can't beat my friends, there's no competition here, like it's literally just like, you know, whoever gets into the spot, we're gonna be at the show regardless. That was the whole feeling the entire time, was we were like, you know, we're gonna do this thing, and you know, we're going to try to play this show. If we can play the show, it'd be awesome. If we can't play the show, then, like, you know, whatever. We're going to be there regardless. But, Katrina, I'm going to let my dog outside.
There she is. I was waiting for her debut.
Yeah. No, she's alive. She's here. She hears the other dogs. Okay, go ahead. See you later, buddy. Okay. No more dog. But yeah, it's been real. I'm a huge fan of Bayside, and that entire competition was like really, really cool. Actually, our friends in Grand Rapids that we played with, this phenomenal band called Birdie Country, they won the local contest in their town, and they got to open for Bayside.
Oh, great. I mean, yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, bands that, I feel like they should have given it to you guys because you reached out to them, and I don't know, having a contest to see what band opens for you. I guess because they're a relatively big band, but I don't know if I was that group of like this band from Long Island just hit me up. I don't know. Well, that was cool. That was a good experience for you, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get them next time. I feel like every time.
Aim for South Bay. Great South Bay is the goal. You know what I mean? That's where you want to be.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, we're gonna do Great South Bay, and then I'm like, we're gonna just get on a bill with these bands one day. Like, it's just gonna happen. Like, and it's gonna seem so natural at that point. Like, it's not gonna be like we're competing or we're trying to get votes on something. It's just gonna be like, hey, do you want to play a show with Bayside? And we're gonna be like, yeah, whatever, and quietly freak out to ourselves, But for now, hey, man, whatever we get.
Did you re-record Bruise Your Ego?
We did a live version of Bruise Your Ego, or I guess a live session version of Bruise Your Ego. We thought that the songs just deserved to be listened to the way that we perform them. And that was like a really big deal, just because it just felt right, man. Like, we literally have been, we put out that EP and it went over so well, and it got so much support on that. And then we kind of sped things up a little bit, and we started, making them a little bit heavier and trying to be more aggressive and, just being more emotional in general. So when it came to the idea of doing a live session, it was like, do we want to do a live song of like this or this or this? And it was like, no, like, let's do Bruise Your Ego the way that we play it live. And if you compare the songs to how we play Bruise Your Ego, in general and whatever else, it's like, it's not a huge difference, but it's an emotional difference. Like, I think you get more emotion out of the way that we play it live. And at that time, it was just like, we had been on a hiatus for 3 or 4 months, and I was just like, we gotta do something. Like, we're just putting out like silly videos that Kieran makes on his iPhone. Like, we gotta put, content is king. Just gotta put something out there, and we decided to do Bruise Your Ego live, and that was such a good day. I'm so happy with the videos. There's videos that go along with each one of the songs that are on our website, so you can kind of see like the goofiness that went into it. We had our friend Lauren Stabler do the video for it, and it was just a good time. I'm so happy we re-recorded that the way that we did, and we had a way better experience this time recording it than we did the first time.
Spilt Milk is the new album from Necter. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Bandcamp, wherever you get music. Sam Raia, thank you so much for hopping on My Little Underground. And where can people follow Necter and reach out to you guys?
You can follow Necter on Instagram. You can follow Necter on Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Hit that subscribe button. I don't know what else they say. Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime, Sam.
Really, really appreciate it.